Hello and welcome to another video. In this video I want to talk about my experience in Spain at the beginning of summer. If you are a person that watches my videos or follows my blog, then you would know that I was in Spain for 3 weeks at the beginning of summer, and I was on a mission to improve my Spanish and see how much Spanish that I that I knew at the time. I do realize it's the ending of summer now, and this video is a bit late. I'm clearly not the best person at documenting my progress, but what I have received are a few messages and comments with people asking me how my experience in Spain was. So I thought I need to go ahead and still make this video. There are many. I learned an awful lot of things in Spain. I learned a lot of good lessons, and there were a lot of good things that came out of the experience, and I had a lot of somewhat bad experiences, you could say. Also, all in all, it was a fantastic learning experience, and I would recommend anybody that is learning a language to definitely go to the country where the language is spoken, and there are clear benefits of going to a country. But with that being said, I do think that going to a country to learn language is completely overrated. And why do I say that it's overrated? The reason why, it's a common belief and common advice that's given to people. And so a lot of the time it's from people that haven't actually learned a language. And they would say that if you want to learn a language, then what you need to do is go to the country to learn the language. Of course, if you do go to the country to learn a language, you are going to pick up some things. There are some things that you probably couldn't get away with not learning, like hello and excuse me and please, and a few little set phrases. But as far as I'm concerned, that is not learning a language. And if you want to be able to speak somewhat fluently or conversationally fluent, whatever you define that as, or whatever your goal is, you're going to have to put in work. And being in a country is not enough, because it's really, really easy to block the language out. And I'm speaking from experience, because when I went to Spain, there were times when I was just absolutely overloaded with Spanish. There were certain conversations where I could not understand what was going on, and there were a majority of the time, 60% of the time, I would try my hardest to follow the conversations and try to figure out what was going on. But the other 50% of the time, because it was around me all the time, there were times when I just blocked the language out completely, and I didn't want to learn anymore for that day. Let's talk about one of the difficulties that I had. I had spent most of my time focusing on Castilian Spanish, the accent for Madrid, to be more specific, and so I listened to the radio from Madrid. I watched TV programs from Spain, and I sort of ignored Spanish from Latin America. And I did do this on purpose, because I didn't want my accent to be somewhat messed up, you could say, or cross between. So I consciously made that effort. It did prove to be a problem, number one, because there are loads of people from Latin America in Spain, and number two, the family that I was staying with were from Latin America, Ecuador to be specific, and I found it really difficult adjusting myself, at least for the first week and a half, for half of my trip, because not only do they pronounce words differently, but also they have a different way of expressing themselves, which is completely different to how people from Spain would express themselves. So I did find that difficult. What else did I find difficult? I think that was my main problem, adjusting to the accent and the way that Spanish was expressed by the lady and her children that I stayed with from Ecuador. Well, I do say the lady that I was staying with is from Ecuador, but her children were born in Spain, so they were able to. They spoke with a Spanish accent from Spain, so I found myself speaking to them more because they were, number one, more patient with me, and number two, they spoke in a way that I could understand. Something that was also difficult is managing the flow of Spanish that was coming at me. I would, in a day, I would learn so many different words. There would be conversations about religion, conversations about the economy, politics, and all sorts of subjects that I had not ever tried to read about in Spanish or listen to in Spanish about. And to be honest, I didn't expect myself to be able to speak about these things, but it doesn't change the fact that they came up so repeatedly. The lady that I stayed with was extremely religious, so I learned a lot of religious words in the religious taxonomy, you could say, and managing the flow of language that's coming at you is something that can be quite difficult. It is literally like stepping into a forest and having to find your way around. You can either stand still and give up and not move forward at all, or you just trust that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can make it easy for yourself by not being hard on yourself. And this is something that I quickly learned, because you're not going to know it all. And, I was always familiar or accepted the concept that there are always going to be times when I don't know something. But to be in a situation where I had no control over I had no control over the Spanish that I was going to be exposed to. There were times when I just had to just say, you know what? I don't need to know that right now. I heard what she said. I caught a few of the words, and I'm happy and I'm proud that I learned and that I noticed something and that I have an idea of what's going on. And there were other times when I didn't know what was going on at all, and there was nothing I could do about it. Learning a language takes time. There's nothing you can do about that. Okay, so there were the things that I would say that I found difficult about learning. Going to Spain for 3 weeks after about 8 months of study. And what are the good things that came out of it? I learned an awful lot of vocabulary and expressions, some things that I probably never would have come across if I didn't go to the country. There are certain things that are only present in spoken Spanish expressions, for example. And a good thing is that going to a country when you're learning a language, it keeps you humble. Not to say that I'm a cocky person, but going to when you are forced to perform in the language that you feel that you somewhat knew, and you suddenly realize that you don't know anything. And I think that is great to have that experience now and again, because it means that you continue to strive forward. It's easy to become complacent when you start to become somewhat conversationally competent in your language. And if you go to the country, or this could be achieved at home by maybe watching movies or listening to the radio, but there's something different. And there's something different about when you go to the country, how the language just becomes so much more alive. And whereas when you're watching a film, you can kind of fast forward, or you could look at the subtitles, or stop the film and look up words. But when you are in a situation where you don't have access to any of these things, i.e. in the country, then you just have to accept and acknowledge that there are a lot of things that you still do not know. It's easy to convince yourself that you do know things when you actually don't. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this video short, and I'll end it with when going. My overall experience in Spain was fantastic, and I learnt an awful lot. And what I did learn is that going to a country is not enough to learn a language, and it's the effort that you put in. You and I could go to a country to learn a language, and you may learn more than me because you're more motivated or more attentive to what is going on. And I may learn absolutely nothing because I am blocking out the language. I put in a tremendous amount of effort, and I do feel that my Spanish has really improved. But going to a country to learn a language is overrated. I think that you can create that bubble of immersion at home. Of course, it's not to the same degree because you do have to control that. But when I was standing in a Spanish house, the house did not necessarily look Spanish. The sofa didn't look like a sofa. The wall did not look like a Spanish wall. They just looked like what they are. I could probably create a better experience by putting labels on things around the house. The only differences in the house were the actual Spanish people, and when I switched on the TV or switched on the radio, by default it was all in Spanish. These are all things that you can do at home, and with the exception of the Spanish people, you can create a bubble of Spanish. And if you do live in a city, there are native speakers all around, and you can. I had a bit of trouble with the camera, and it seemed to have cut out the last part of what I just said. Just to summarize everything that I've said today, I do think that going to a country to learn a language is something that can be beneficial to people that want to learn. However, going to a country to learn a language is not a magic solution. It's not like waving a magic wand and you are going to learn the language, because you probably have to put in more work and more effort than you would do if you were at home. You can create a bubble of immersion at home. It would not be to the extent that you would get, of course, if you were in the country, but that really can be a good thing, because it's easy to just shut the language out and to not want to participate in the language because you feel so overwhelmed and frustrated. The trick is just to take a little bit at a time and take as much as you as an individual can handle, and you will learn. Happy language learning all. I hope my experience has shed some sort of light for you with your experience, with your journey learning whatever language that may be. And if there is anything that you want to know more about, do send me a message or write a comment, and I will either respond via text or I'll make another video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves.